We say the dead are gone, buried beneath earth and memory. But in the sacred lands of the Yoruba, that is not the whole story. In this world, the dead do not sleep. They watch, they walk, and sometimes they return, wrapped not in flesh, but in cloth and wind. You do not see their faces. You feel their presence. You hear their breath in the rustle of heavy fabric, in the stamp of sacred feet. And when they come, the people gather. Children hush. Elders weep, because Egungun has arrived, the ancestor who wears the mask of the forgotten and moves through the living like a storm through the soul. The Egungun tradition is not mere ritual. It is a doorway, a moment when the world of the living and the world of the dead overlap like shadow and flame. At first glance, you may think you're watching a masked dancer, but look deeper. You are not seeing a man. You are seeing a lineage, a soul that lived, died, and now walks again to bless, correct, or warn. The mask is not costume. It is the face of the dead. The cloth is not fabric. It is ancestral skin. Across towns in Nigeria, Benin, and Togo, the Egungun appears in moments of deep importance. Festivals, funerals, harvest blessings, or when the community has gone astray. The sound of drums becomes a summons. The masquerade begins not with a dance, but with a descent. For the one behind the cloth does not dance on his own. He is ridden, not by gods, but by those who came before. What happens when the dead return to speak? What does it mean when a masked figure reveals your secret, heals your sickness, or names your shame in front of a crowd? Who are these spirits that move like fire, speak in ancient voices, and vanish as suddenly as they arrive? In this journey, we will enter the sacred realm of the Egungun. Their origins, their power, their mystery. You will see that ancestry is not memory, it is movement, and that sometimes, to move forward, we must welcome the past when it comes dancing back, wrapped in cloth and prophecy. Long before the cities rose, before colonizers drew maps across rivers and kingdoms, the Yoruba chosen first, layered, rich, often dazzling with colors that shimmer like flame. Each layer holds meaning. Some are for wealth, others for protection. Some are stitched with the names of the dead whose spirit might enter. The mask is sacred. Once it is worn, the man beneath it ceases to be himself. He becomes a vessel. The voice is hidden. muffled by cloth and spirit. The eyes no longer belong to the man. They belong to the ancestor who now walks in him. The breath of the Egungun is not his breath. It is the breath of those long buried. Grandfathers, warriors, priestesses, mothers whose lullabies echo in dreams. And when he moves, he does not move randomly. His steps are the steps of memory. Each spin a message, each stomp a correction. When he lashes out with his whip, he is not punishing for fun. He is resetting balance. The Egungun societies, often called Egbe Egungun, were formed to keep this sacred tradition protected and organized. These were not casual gatherings. Membership required deep knowledge, spiritual discipline, and years of initiation. It was not enough to wear the cloth. One had to carry the weight of the ancestors with dignity and power. Some societies held hundreds of members, each assigned a lineage, a mask, a purpose. Some Egungun were quiet, walking slowly, blessing children. Others were fierce, wild, lashing out, demanding truth from liars and justice from the lazy. There were even different types of Egungun. Some represented known ancestors of a family. Others were collective spirits of the community. And a few were cosmic figures who reminded the living of the consequences of their actions. The most feared ones were said to speak directly to the elders in secret, telling of coming danger, unclean spirits, or ancestral anger. And in every community, the arrival of the Egungun was an event of power. The drummers began first, talking drums, bata, and gangan, weaving a rhythm that only the spirits truly understand. The people gathered, dressed in white or family colors. Libation was poured. Prayers were whispered. Then the air would shift. The wind would carry dust across the village square. And from the compound of the Egungun society, he would emerge, towering, trembling, cloth flowing like river water. And the people would cry out, not in fear, but in recognition, because they knew this was not just a man. This was lineage returned. This was memory in motion. This was ancestral truth made visible. Today, the tradition lives on, not as a relic, but as a living force. In Ibadan, in Lagos, in diasporic festivals across Brazil and the Caribbean, the Egungun still rises. The mask still breathes. And the dead still return, wrapped in cloth, carried by drums, welcomed by those who remember. Because in Yoruba thought, the dead do not belong to the past. They belong to now, and they will keep returning, so long as someone dares to listen. The body does not choose the ancestor. The ancestor chooses the body. Among the Yoruba, there is no randomness in who wears the cloth. The Egungun does not descend on just any man. Before the dance, before the chant, before the first drum beat splits the silence, the selection has already occurred. In dreams, in omens, in the quiet recognition of those who carry the weight of the dead without knowing why. Some are born with it, others are marked later, but all are called. The signs begin early. A child who dreams constantly of funerals and names no one else knows. A young man who falls into trance when drums begin to play. A woman who speaks languages her parents cannot recognize. These are not accidents. They are ancestral fingerprints, messages from the unseen that say, "We have chosen this one." When the elders see the signs, they do not rush. They watch. They ask questions. They pour libation and consult the Ifa oracle, seeking confirmation. And if the oracle speaks clearly, if the message is undeniable, the initiation begins. It is not a costume ceremony. It is a spiritual transformation. The initiate is taught the names of the ancestors, the sacred proverbs, the rhythm codes of the talking drums. He is shown the masks, but not allowed to touch. Not yet. First, he must learn how to carry the ancestors without breaking. He must be cleansed. He must be tested. Only after long preparation is the cloth brought forth, layer upon layer, each with meaning. Red for strength, white for purity, blue for deep memory. Some masks hold the power of a single ancestor. Others are collective, carrying generations of voices in one face. The mask is sacred. Once it is worn, the man beneath it vanishes. He becomes a living shrine. And when the Egungun finally steps into the square, it is not the man who moves, it is the spirit. The rhythm that drives him is not just heard. It is felt in the stomach, in the spine, in the bones. The drummers know this moment. They tighten the beat. The crowd begins to shift. A wind kicks up, and then the descent begins. Possession in the Egungun tradition is not wild. It is controlled fire. The spirit does not scream. It commands. It does not twitch. It flows. The ancestor takes hold of the body with purpose. Every step, every gesture is calculated. A pointed hand means accusation. A sweeping cloth means forgiveness. A sudden turn means hidden truth revealed. And those watching know how to read the signs. The elders interpret. The children stare in awe. The women cry softly, recognizing the walk of a father long buried. The body has become more than body. It has become a vessel of lineage. The spirit stays for minutes, sometimes hours, rarely longer. Possession takes strength on both sides, and when the ancestor's message is complete, there is a stillness, a slowing. The body begins to tremble. The mask dips. The breath becomes human again. The man inside returns, exhausted, blank, often unaware of what just moved through him. He must be bathed, federal, covered in white. He is vulnerable now, open. His body has been a road for the dead, and it must be closed again. If not, he may continue to feel voices, dreams, aches that do not belong to him. But the people rejoice. The Egungun has spoken. Justice has been served. A curse has been lifted. A message delivered. And even if no words were spoken, the presence alone is enough. Because when the ancestors choose a body, they do not come to visit. They come to set things right. There are those who fear this process. Not all who are called accept the cloth. Some run, some deny. But the ancestors are patient. They wait. They send more dreams, more signs. And eventually, the chosen returns, willing or broken. Because the Egungun is not a performance. It is a covenant. To carry the mask is to carry generational memory. To wear the cloth is to become the voice of the unseen. To be chosen is to walk with the dead, not beside you, but within you. And in every village where the Egungun tradition survives, the question remains, who among us is next? Whose body will carry the wisdom of those long gone? Who has been marked by cloth and silence and the weight of the beyond? The descent is never random. It is written, in blood, in wind, in the footsteps of those who no longer cast shadows, but still move through us. It begins with a silence that is not silence, a tension in the air, a knowing in the chest. The sun may be bright, the village square full of laughter and color, but the people know this is not an ordinary day. Today, the dead will walk. In Yoruba, towns across Nigeria, Oyo, Ibadan, Eda, and beyond, the Egungun festival is not just a celebration, it is a return. It is when the people lay aside their everyday selves and prepare to meet their ancestors, not in tombs or dreams, but in living cloth and sacred movement. As the hour nears, the drummers begin to gather, not just any musicians, sacred drummers who know the coded rhythms that speak to the spirits. Their instruments are not for pleasure. They are tools of invocation. The bata drums, the gangan, the omele. Each has its voice. Together they call, and the earth listens. The people come dressed in white or family colors, their heads wrapped, their eyes alert. Elders sit close to the front, their hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from recognition. They know what is coming. They have seen it before, and they know the power that walks when the Egungun rises. Suddenly, a hush falls. The drums shift. A sound like thunder and wind fills the square. And from the sacred compound, it appears. The Egungun. Cloth stacked in shimmering layers, red, blue, gold, bone white. Fabric flowing with every step like water touched by wind. No face, no voice, just movement, just power. The air shifts. The people lean back instinctively, because they are not looking at a masquerade. They are looking at a spirit, a returning soul, a truth wrapped in motion. He may move slowly, each step deliberate, as if weighed down by centuries, or he may burst into dance, spinning and leaping, the cloth rising like flame. The crowd erupts, not with laughter, but with awe. Cries of recognition, tears from old women who whisper, "That's my brother's walk." Children clutch their mothers. The line between past and present dissolves. The dead are here, but the festival is not just spectacle. It is ritual theater, and everyone plays a part. The Egungun may stop before someone in the crowd and stand still. That person knows they have been chosen, perhaps for a blessing, perhaps for correction. The Egungun does not speak with a human voice, but the gestures, the turns, the slaps of the cloth, the spin and stop, all of it is language, and the elders know how to interpret. In some moments, multiple Egungun appear, each one representing a different lineage, a different ancestral force. The square becomes a sacred stage, and the people witness a reunion of the dead, each spirit moving to its rhythm, each cloth a history retold through dance. The drummers match their beat to each Egungun's energy, faster for the warriors, slower for the healers, erratic for the tricksters. The gods are watching, the ancestors are watching. The world becomes layered, visible and invisible worlds touching for just a moment. Sometimes the Egungun carries a whip of cloth or palm frond. It is not a toy, it is justice. If someone has wronged the community, the Egungun may lash out, not in cruelty, but in spiritual correction. The people bow. They accept it. Because when the dead correct you, it is not punishment. It is love in its rawest form. Food is shared. Songs are sung. Oriki, praise poetry, is recited for the lineages. The children are taught to clap in rhythm, to bow when the Egungun passes. They are told, that is not just a dancer. That is your blood speaking. As the sun begins to fall, the energy changes. The Egungun steps grow slower. The cloth hangs heavier. The spirits do not stay long. The human body can only hold the dead for so long before it begins to crack under the weight. And so, slowly, the Egungun turns and begins to return to the compound. The people fall silent again. Some weep, some smile. All are changed, because the dead have spoken, because the ancestors have danced, because something sacred has touched the earth again. And though the cloth will be folded and the drums will be packed away, the memory remains. The message remains. The balance has been restored. This is the festival of Egungun. It is not a holiday. It is a homecoming. It is not a performance. It is a portal. And in that brief window of movement and cloth, the living remember their place in a chain far older than any empire. A chain that stretches through time, through blood, through dance, and through the sacred silence behind the mask. Not all who wait for the Egungun do so with joy. There are those who shift in their seats, who look away when the cloth appears, who feel a chill not from the wind, but from recognition. Because the Egungun does not always come to bless. Sometimes it comes to reveal. And when it does, the mask becomes a mirror, and in that reflection, the truth can no longer hide. Among the Yoruba, the Egungun is not simply a ritual dancer. He is a judge, sent not by a human court, but by the ancestors themselves. When the line between the living and the dead is opened, those who walk through it do not forget the crimes left unpunished, the vows left broken, the altars left untended. The Egungun remembers everything. There are stories told in hushed voices of a man who stole land from his cousin, and during the Egungun festival, the spirit stopped mid-dance, turned, and struck him with a sacred cloth. The man fell to the ground, trembling. Days later, he returned the land, not because he was forced, but because he knew. The ancestors had seen. In another town, a woman who had poisoned her neighbor watched as the Egungun danced directly toward her, spinning faster, faster, until dust filled the air. When it cleared, the spirit stood still, inches from her face. No words, no gestures, just presence. She fainted, and when she woke, she confessed. This is the power of Egungun. Not violence, not threat, but undeniable spiritual authority. When the Egungun lashes out, it is not random. The cloth touches only who must be touched. The whip does not harm, it cleanses. It delivers the shame that leads to repentance. The people do not argue with it. They do not explain themselves. They bow, because everyone understands. You do not lie to the dead. The warnings come in different ways. Sometimes the spirit simply refuses to dance. It stands still for minutes, hours. The elders gather, whisper, pray. They know something is wrong. Sometimes the Egungun begins to tremble violently, spinning out of rhythm, breaking patterns. The drummers adjust, but the spirit will not align. It is not the music that is wrong. It is the community. The priests consult the oracle. Offerings are made. Apologies are spoken aloud. Only when the balance is restored does the cloth begin to move again. There are also times when the Egungun speaks, not through words, but through dreams. Those who witness the festival often report visions that night. Ancestors standing at the edge of their sleep, pointing, whispering, crying. Sometimes these dreams bring healing. Other times they reveal what must be faced. The Egungun does not forget betrayal. It does not forget forgotten ancestors. Those who abandoned their lineage, who mocked tradition, who used spiritual gifts for greed. These are the ones who fear the festival most, because they know the mask might stop in front of them. And when it does not need to speak. Everyone watching already knows. The beauty of Egungun is its balance. It is not wrathful. It is not cruel. Its judgment is measured, always tied to restoration. The ancestors do not punish to destroy. They correct to protect the community's future. To ignore their warnings is to invite spiritual decay. To listen is to rebuild harmony. And so the people watch the movements carefully. Every spin, every pause, every change in rhythm could be a message. The elders know the signs. They interpret. They guide the community through what has been revealed. Sometimes it is personal. A family matter, a broken marriage, a child with hidden gifts. Other times it is collective. A shrine that must be rebuilt, an elder who must be honored, a village that must renew its vows. When the Egungun speaks in this way, no one asks for proof. The spirit's presence is the proof. The way the air shifts, the way your skin knows before your mind does, the way the cloth moves with intention, not performance. And so the people act. They make amends. They offer sacrifice. They call meetings. They confess, not out of fear, but out of deep respect for the eyes watching from beyond. Because the Egungun is not just a reminder of death. It is a guardian of the living, a hand that points not just to the past, but to what must be healed for the future to survive. This is the warning. It is not shouted. It is not forced. It arrives in silence, in cloth, in movement. And once given, it cannot be taken back. When the ships came, they came for bodies. But they took more than that. They took names, languages, altars, gods, or so they thought. What they could not see was what the people carried inside, the songs, the codes, the memory of the ancestors. Beneath the chains and salt water, Egungun sailed quietly. It hid in the heartbeat. It waited in the silence. And when the people stepped onto foreign soil, it whispered, "We are still here." In the diaspora, across Cuba, Brazil, Haiti, Trinidad, and the American South, the Egungun survived. Not always by name, sometimes hidden, sometimes disguised, but always breathing through the cloth and rhythm of resistance. The people had been scattered, but the ancestors still walked with them. And so, the tradition shifted, but never died. In Cuba, the practice of Santeria, a fusion of Yoruba Orisha worship and Catholic symbolism, held fragments of Egungun in the reverence for Egun, the spirits of the dead. Before every ceremony, before any Orisha is called, the dead are honored first. Offerings are placed. Names are spoken. And though the Egungun Masquerade is rare in its full form, its essence is felt. The veil is lifted, if only briefly, and the presence of the ancestors arrives. In Brazil, the energy lives on in candomblé. There, the Orisha walk openly. The dead are not hidden. They are consulted, fed, invited. During festivals, masked figures resembling Egungun sometimes emerge, called encantados, or ancestral forces of the terreiro. The people may not use the name Egungun, but the spirit is familiar. The cloth still dances, the drums still speak, and the dead still whisper through the rhythm. In Haiti, the Geda, spirits of the dead in the Vodou tradition, mirror Egungun's essence. They are loud, raw, wild. Dressed in black and purple, wearing top hats and sunglasses, the Geda appear during the Fête Gede, Festival of the Dead, mocking death, calling out secrets, dancing in cemeteries. While Gedi and Egungun have different origins, they serve the same sacred purpose, to remind the living that the dead are watching and they still have work to do. Even in the United States, in the black churches and praise houses of the South, Egungun echoes live in spirituals and shouts. The stomping, the trembling, the spirit possession, the ancestor-honoring sermons, all bear the hidden fingerprints of African cosmology. The masks were stripped, the drums outlawed, but the memory survived in the body. In recent decades, as African descendants began seeking their roots, the Egungun has returned with new power. In diasporic Yoruba temples, especially in places like Trinidad, the US, and Brazil, Egungun festivals are being revived. Tailors sew sacred cloth. Drummers learn the ancient rhythms. Elders train a new generation of spirit bearers. What was once whispered in secret is now being sung aloud. But make no mistake, this return is not fashion. It is not nostalgia. It is a spiritual correction. It is the ancestors saying, "You may be far from the land, but you are not far from us." In these revived festivals, the diaspora rediscovers something essential. That Egungun is not just about honoring the dead. It is about carrying their unfinished work, about healing the wounds of separation, about standing in cloth and thunder to say, "I remember." Some wear the mask for the first time and weep, not from fear, but from recognition, from the sudden knowing that they are not alone, that their blood is not rootless, that the gods still move in their bones. Even in modern cities, in backyards turned into altars, in living rooms turned into shrines, Egungun rises again. The cloth may be stitched in New York, the drums may echo through Chicago, but the spirit is Yoruba. The spirit is ancestral.
The spirit knows its name, and so the diaspora reclaims what was never truly lost. They rebuild the altars, they sing the songs, they pour the libations, and when the time is right, they let the cloth rise again. The Egungun walks once more, and the message is clear. You are not forgotten. You are never alone. We ride with you still. The cloth may fold. The drums may fall silent. The dust may settle on the earth where spirits walked. But Egungun does not end. It waits, it listens, it remembers, and when the time is right, it rises again. Not as story, not as symbol, but as truth wearing fabric and breath. Because the mask is not a performance, it is a sacred inheritance. It is the memory of ancestors that refuses to rot. It is justice that walks, mercy that spins, warning that dances before it speaks. In every place where the Egungun rises, be it in Yoruba land or the diaspora, the same power moves. It moves through rhythm, through breath, through trembling hands and heads bowed in reverence. It does not need a voice to speak. It speaks through presence, through the way the air changes, through the way silence becomes holy. You have seen what few dare to look at. You have watched the dead return in cloth and wind. You have learned that death is not a full stop. It is a turn, a veil, a soft place where spirit steps sideways to wait until the next call. Because the ancestors are never far. They are in the dust that rises, in the cloth that spins, in the names whispered before libation touches the earth. And when we honor them, they do not only return, they walk beside us. Egungun is not about the past. It is about now. It is about who we carry inside us, even when we forget. It is about becoming the voice of those who can no longer speak, until we put on the mask, until we lift the cloth, until we spin. This is not superstition. This is remembrance. This is not fear. This is responsibility. You are not separate from the dead. You are not a child of amnesia. You are the continuation of a song that has been playing since the first ancestor stepped into the sacred dark. And if you ever forget, the mask will remind you. The wind will call you. The drums will return. Because the Egungun does not die. It waits, it breathes, it watches, and when you are ready, it descends.